Welcome back to another episode of Stack Rack TV. You know, Stack Rack Boxing, whatever you want to call it, you dig what I'm saying? Where we talk boxing, but we also talk shit sometimes too when it's warranted, you dig what I'm saying? But, you know, the main purpose of this channel is the what? Mac Jack, Slack Jack, and Jack. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm just curious right now. What's up with O'Shaquie Foster? Ain't nobody bringing O'Shaquie Foster up in the 135-pound division. Why? He'll give all of those guys a run for their money. Y'all seen Gervonta said that he's not pursuing that fight. Why would he not pursue a fight that he feel like he could win? Right? So that say, you know how they say a picture say 1,000 words? That little article, wherever it came from, said 1,000 words. So I'm saying, who at 135 will step up and take the Foster test? I'm confused. You know, I thought the whole point of boxing was to stay active, get your chicken, and keep it pushing, build a legacy, right? O'Shaquie Foster done came from nothing to something. Now we not hearing much. When Naoya Inoue beat him, right? Everybody was, yeah. Now O'Shaquie outclassed him totally. Could have pushed this, could have stepped on the gas and ended up stopping Stephen Fulton. I'm saying after a performance like that, me personally, I want to see him again. Can somebody make that happen? Whoever get in touch with all these companies and all that, let them know Stack sent you. You know what I'm saying? I want to know what's up with O'Shaquie Foster. That man is something serious in there. Boxing ability through the roof. IQ through the roof. All he needs is a training camp. All he needs is a training camp to get a guy going. I'm saying at 135, is anybody willing to call out Foster? I haven't heard nobody say nothing about Foster since that ass whooping he put on Stephen Fulton. And it's a shame. I thought the whole point of the sport of boxing was to stay active, get your chicken, and build a legacy, right? But these guys don't want to step up and take certain tests. I'm saying O'Shaquie Foster at 135 pounds will give all of these guys a problem. Abdullah Mason, I feel like he a little bit too green for Foster right now. O'Shaquie Foster done got his groove back. See what I'm saying? Kid Austin, I feel like he beat Kid Austin the same way he beat Stephen Fulton. Easy work, right? But like I said before, I'm confused. Is we not pushing for these fighters to fight more actively, right? It's, you know, O'Shaquie Foster got all the skills in the world, all the talent in the world. Boxing ability is through the roof, especially right now that he got his groove back. I'm saying, when we going to see him get in there with another big name? You know, he deserved all of it, especially with how much and how hard he worked. You know, he's been dedicated to the sport of boxing for a while now. You know, he even proved me wrong in that Stephen Fulton fight. I thought he was high in a couple of them interviews. I'm like, man, he finna fuck this up. Nope. On point, made weight, went in there and looked gorgeous. Went in there and put on a spectacular performance. So I'm saying, I want to see him again. Y'all don't want to see Shaq again? Y'all don't want to see Shaq again? Floyd Schofield on here talking about he going to fight 3 times this year. You know, I would like to see Foster in that mix. You know what I'm saying? See what you could do against a boxer. And since you don't like fighting undefeated fighters, I'm saying, why not fight a guy like Shaq? He got a few losses, right? Although some of them be controversial. You know, you lose early in your career, things like that. But nonetheless, he not an undefeated fighter. Why don't y'all call that guy name out, right? And that's what I'm saying. For me personally, I like to see these guys active. I like to see these guys fighting often. I don't care if Shaq get a tune-up neck. I'll be watching. I like to see what these guys work so hard in that training camp for. You know, and like I said right now, 135, it's not a super stacked division, but, you know, it's a lot of guys with belts right now. You know, Abdullah Mason right now, Gervonta Davis, you know, he got that belt in a yoke right now. You know, Gervonta Davis got that belt in a headlock right now. So I'm saying, can he get the winner between Murataya and Andy Cruz? Right? Obviously, one of them got to get a tune-up. So could he fight the loser? You know, but I feel like Shaq got that shit for real. You know, he deserves an opportunity just like everybody else. He got a family just like everybody else. I wonder when y'all going to push for these guys to get more active versus these other guys. You know, a lot of people make an excuse for why Gervonta ain't defending his belt, why he not active. You know what I'm saying? What's the excuse for Shaq not being active or fighting against one of y'all favorite fighters? What's the excuse? You know, he's starting to be more accomplished in the sport, right? That first fight with Conceição, we wouldn't even see the second fight if the judges didn't do him how they did him in the first fight, right? But I'm confused. I'm curious. You know what I'm saying? When is these guys gonna get more active, and who could set all that up, right? If he not a main event fighter or a co-main event fighter, put him on the card. I'm sure he needs some money to take care of his family. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's about, staying active to be able to take care of your family. You know what I'm saying? But Shaq, he deserved everything coming to him, everything good coming to him, you know, especially in the sport of boxing, because he earned it. You know, discipline in the sport now. You know, a story that he got, you know, it need to go to the masses. A lot of people out here, you know, that been shot, done went to jail. You know, they think it's over. You know, he a walking testimony, a boxing testimony that you could shake back and be better than you was before. You know, we need more storytelling in boxing. You know, and like I said before, you know, if somebody could give Shaquille Foster the opportunity, you know, and, you know, the opportunity to be a lot more consistent, I'm sure that he will. But, you know, y'all got to be able to push for these fights. Y'all got to push for these guys to be more active, because if not, we're going to keep seeing the sport do the same thing that it's always doing, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. I don't care if he come back and fight a tune-up. You know, at least stay active, stay in these fans. But Shaq Foster, his talent and skills alone, you know, his skills and his talent alone right now in the sport of boxing, you know, should put him at the top of all these lists. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know how it is. You know, you as good as your last performance. He looked spectacular in that last performance, and now don't nobody want to take that test.